Welcome, everybody, to the NFL Show on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. The NFL Show, as always, is brought to you by PathofPurity.direct. Make sure you go to PathofPurity.direct for organic CBD. You put a tablet under your tongue. It time releases over the next 12 hours, goes into your bloodstream immediately. And right now on PathofPurity.direct, there is a special 2-month supply for the price of one. So make sure you check them out at PathofPurity.direct. I'm your host for the NFL Show, Mike Goodpasser. Right now, I'd like to welcome in my co-host, Sam Teets. How you doing, Sam?
I'm doing all right, Mike. Although I could be doing a little bit better this morning.
That's most Mondays when we do this show, Sam.
Hey, I'm putting together. I'm trying to check the total rankings for the year, see what our final records were. So I'm going to see. I'm sure you won, but I don't know about how many games.
All right. Well, we know we won by yesterday. Next up, we have our special guest today. First up, from the NHL Show and the Sam and Sam Show, Sam McGinnis. How you doing, Sam?
I'm doing all right, but yeah, yesterday was rough.
Yeah. Remember, McGinnis, you're the one that said that Brady couldn't win the Super Bowl in Tampa because he didn't play well in warm weather. And you did give us 6 games to prove that out of 284. All right, next up, special guest, Steve Rizzer, Clovercast Media, correct?
Clovercrest Media.
Clovercrest Media. All right, let's just start off. I thought this was an outstanding football game, and I think that because of this. I think it showed what wins football games. And the offensive and defensive lines for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were the difference in this game, Sam.
Absolutely. I mean, look at how Patrick Mahomes was running around for most of the game the other day. And he never had a chance to set his feet, never had a chance to really let guys get open downfield, which has been how they've won so many times in these situations. I have a stat here I'm going to pull up. ESPN ran a total for the number of yards he ran behind the line of scrimmage before throwing the ball. And it was something like absolutely ridiculous. So he ended up
like 450 yards
497 yards before throwing the ball the other day. And he's pressured on 29 of 56 dropbacks. So they destroyed Kansas City's offensive line.
Yeah, and the thing that is impressive here, everybody talks about Shaq Barrett, the ends, the linebackers, and all that. But the guy that really stood out to me is Ndamukong Suh, Steve Rizzer. This is a guy that a lot of people hated through most of his career. He's a guy that seems like he's calmed down, and he is a dominant player now. And on top of that, he looks like he's a team leader.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he was great last night getting pressure on Tom Brady, stopping the run. His sack numbers got a little bit higher this year. The sack numbers were a little bit down last year, but he was great. He looked like the guy who was in Detroit and early in his and when he started in Miami, he was outstanding last night. But just so was the Bucs defensive line. They were amazing, and that's the biggest storyline of the game. The Bucs defensive line just dominating the Chiefs offensive line.
Well, I think it was both sides. Both lines dominated the game. And when you see this coming in, it doesn't matter how good your quarterback is if you don't have an offensive line, Sam McGinnis.
Yeah, absolutely. The worst part of this is I've said this before myself, so I should have probably gone with the Bucs, but I went against my own thing I've said too, which was probably stupid, but I went with my gut, and it had me at 8-4 at that point, so I figured, why not trust it again? Turns out my gut was wrong.
Yeah, your gut was wrong. And when I look at the coaching here, the Kansas City Chiefs from the start of this game, Steve Rizzer, seemed to lose their composure almost constantly. And, I mean, they looked like a team that was completely unprepared to play this game.
Oh, without question, yeah. I mean, I didn't see. I thought they would get the ball to Mahomes' hands quick. Sometimes, at times they didn't. I mean, and then Tyrann Mathieu going crazy. After that third touchdown before the half, he was going crazy, and the Chiefs just seemed like completely out of sorts pretty much all night. And yeah, the coaching staff. I thought going into the game that was going to be the difference: the Kansas City coaching staff against the Tampa Bay coaching staff. But Tampa completely outcoached Kansas City yesterday.
Well, I think it goes back to this. I think the only person we heard talk about Todd Bowles was me all last week, even with the national media. Yeah. Todd Bowles is one of the best defensive coordinators in football, Sam Teets.
What are you on? Everyone was talking about Todd Bowles last week. I watched him get up every morning when I work out. He was being talked about the entire time.
Yeah, but not in a great way.
Okay, Mike. All right.
Well, he won. I didn't hear anybody say that he was the best coach in that game.
No one said he was the best coach in that game, but I said he was going to do a good job. And here's the thing. Andy Reid got totally outgamed there by Todd Bowles. And this is why we said Todd Bowles deserves another head coaching job. And we were arguing with someone in the comment section on Facebook who was saying, I did terrible with the New York Jets and all that stuff. No, it's the New York Jets. Of course he has trouble there. Todd Bowles deserves another head coaching job, and frankly, there was no spot available and it hadn't been filled this summer. He should have deserved to get it after this game because of how well he coached. And was the biggest mistake Andy Reid made last night before the half with the timeouts, calling the timeouts before half.
Terrible, because it looked like the Bucs were going to run the clock out, and then he calls 2 timeouts.
Yeah, you give, and the Bucs still had 1 timeout left. The Bucs still had 1 timeout left because of that.
And you don't forget, he did that last year too. And then the Niners did that big play to George Kittle. Then he pushed off, and they got the penalty, and they ran out the clock. But yeah, terrible clock management by Andy Reid there.
Yeah, this is Tom Brady. This is not Jimmy Garoppolo. Like you shouldn't do this. Like you should know better by this point.
Even if it's been Jimmy Garoppolo, you don't do it. I mean, it's 3rd and 1. You want to make sure that you're calling a timeout to get the ball back, not calling the timeout to give the other team extra plays. And I think that was the whole key to the game. And it's the same thing we saw in the NFC Championship game where, you get beat deep. And I'm sorry, but I see all these people saying the game was fixed. I think if the NFL was going to fix it, it'd have been a close game and they'd have gave it to Patrick Mahomes. I'm sorry, but when a receiver's running down the field and your guy's falling down and he swipes the other guy's legs out from under him, that's pass interference.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Without question.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And I think that it's amazing, Sam McGinnis, how many people will make up as much stuff as they possibly can to justify why Tom Brady won instead of actually giving Tom Brady credit.
Well, I think on top of Tom Brady, they also have to give significant credit to the defense. And yes, people will come up with every excuse humanly possible to make themselves feel good about the fact that they're a team. And here's what I've got to say. No, I don't think any minus maybe the D-line of the Bucs actually killed them in this game. They killed themselves. The defense killed, Bucs offense killed their defense, and their offense as a whole got nothing going. They shot themselves in the foot just about every step of the way, pretty much ensuring no chance of coming back.
Yeah, so is Tom Brady the greatest team athlete in the history of sports, Sam McGinnis?
I don't know enough about cross sports. Like you have, obviously, Olympics and different things. I don't know if I can say that, but I think I can say that for football for sure.
I think you could say it for anything. Am I wrong here, Teets?
Yeah. So basically, the debate boils down to Brady versus MJ, right? I mean, that's the bottom line.
I don't think it does. I don't think MJ could even be in the conversation. MJ,
that's right. You think Larry Bird's the best basketball player of all time? So yeah.
No, I actually think that if I'm going the greatest basketball player of all time, it might be Kareem. I think he was the most unstoppable guy. I think also with Michael Jordan, his 6 championships were won in a 7-year window. I mean, Tom Brady won a world championship in 3 separate decades. And it's not to say anything bad about Michael Jordan, but Michael Jordan had 1985 to 1990, didn't win anything. He won 6 and 7, which is great, but just a period of time he did this over. And Michael Jordan, let's face it, with the NBA, you just needed Scottie Pippen and a couple other guys. I mean, with Tom Brady, this is also, this would be more of a conversation if Michael Jordan went to the Washington Wizards and won a world championship.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking about. Because, think about Tampa Bay. What was the last time they made the playoffs for this year? Like 2004, I want to say?
2007. I know that because the Giants beat them in the first round.
Yeah.
There you go. But see, they're one of the losingest franchises in the NFL. They've only ever won one Super Bowl in the past. Tom Brady goes there after a year. They were all right but struggle because of Jameis Winston. He goes there immediately. They get a bunch of these bargain bin free agency guys like Leonard Fournette, Antonio Brown, Rob Gronkowski comes back, and now they're Super Bowl champions with a chance to run it back next year. That's the Tom Brady effect.
Well, and the thing is this, Steve Rizzer, when you look at the guys he just talked about, Antonio Brown was a guy Bruce Arians didn't really want. So the guys that Brady wanted, like Gronk, Fournette, and Antonio Brown, those are the 3 guys that were scoring the points yesterday.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, those are the guys. Yeah, Brady did some recruiting. He wanted to have the guys he wanted on the team, and Arians pretty much kind of just had to live with it because of how great Tom Brady is. And look at where the Bucs organization was before that. Yeah, you look at them last year. Yeah, they have some pieces. They were building something in Tampa Bay with Devin White. They've had Levante David for a while, Chris Godwin and Mike Evans, but they really haven't been able to get over the hump because they haven't had the quarterback. Now that they have the quarterback, the GM did let him have some say on some guys that he wanted there, and it ended up working out.
Yeah, and I think greatest quarterback of all time, he completely separated himself from everybody. Absolutely. And the difference is this. If Joe Montana in 1993 wins a Super Bowl with the Chiefs, you can still have a conversation. But he didn't. He lost in a championship game. I wrote the article about Brady in Montana simply because, over 127,000 people read that, Sam Teets.
I believe it. That kind of stuff is what sells when you get clicks on that kind of stuff.
I even wrote an article once on why LeBron James was better than Michael Jordan, and it still gets like 20,000 reads a week just because everybody's either pissed off or they love LeBron. And the thing that's sad here is I think people are missing in Tom Brady a guy the likes we will never see again in the NFL, even long after we're all gone.
No, I have to agree with you there, because think about it. Like you said, winning in 3 different decades, but it's the teams he's done it with. Hey, the ability, first off, he comes in the league, he's a very low drafted quarterback. This is not a guy who came in to start right away. He has to take advantage of Drew Bledsoe getting hurt to go in, and Bill Belichick makes the decision to ride with Tom Brady despite Bledsoe coming back and eventually being healthy. And then he takes less money so the team can afford more weapons around him. He's always worked with the team. He's always put the team first. He's rarely ever been selfish in these situations. And it takes a team at New England. New England was not even like a vaunted franchise before Tom Brady arrived. And suddenly that's like the staple of the NFL. Tom Brady is one of a kind.
How about this? When I'm growing up, like 1975 to 1985, if you would have told me someday that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the New England Patriots would have won Super Bowls, I'd have thought you were nuts.
Yeah, because those franchises were absolutely terrible in those days.
Yeah, I mean, the Patriots had the 1 year in 85 where they went and got bludgeoned by the Bears.
Yeah.
But, I mean, the Patriots, when I was growing up, the Patriots and the Bucs were pretty much jokes. And the fact that it's why I respect Kurt Warner so much. This dude went to the St. Louis Rams, not the LA Rams of the 70s, and he wins a Super Bowl. And then he goes to the Cardinals and takes them to a Super Bowl. I mean, guys just don't do that. I mean, this is special. I think it's really sad that people let their hate get in the way. But we also know a lot of that hate is similar to why I hate the Pittsburgh Steelers. My team can't beat them.
Yeah, it's a little bit of jealousy, but you gotta understand, like, that happens. But I'm a Steelers fan. I obviously don't like Tom Brady because of what New England does, but I can respect the fact that he is the greatest quarterback of all time, and my team has never had anyone who can even hold a candle to what he's done.
And you have a Hall of Fame quarterback too.
Yeah, Terry Bradshaw. He won 4 Super Bowls. Ben Roethlisberger's not even in Terry Bradshaw's stratosphere, dude. Terry Bradshaw won 4 Super Bowls against 4 legendary defenses and threw a touchdown in the fourth quarter of each one. Terry Bradshaw's the guy that should be in everybody's top 10 quarterbacks. I don't care what his stats were because stats were different back then. Hell, Kenny Stabler and Joe Namath, I think, had almost the same amount of interceptions as they did touchdowns, and they both won Super Bowls. The officiating. Officiating is bad in every football game I've ever seen in my entire life. Yesterday, I didn't think it was any worse than what I've ever seen before. I especially liked how everybody seemed to pick on Tyreek Hill, though, Sam McGinnis.
I actually thought, I don't know why people would go out and say that there was a problem with the officiating yesterday, because every time there was a call on the Chiefs, you'd think, after so many calls, it would be some sort of ref ball. But when every single one of those calls is clear and blatant, it's hard to argue with it. I thought the officiating yesterday was actually pretty good.
Yeah, and actually, I saw a lot of Buccaneers, especially Shaq Barrett and JPP, actually have a Kansas City Chief almost put a saddle on their back and ride them and not even get a holding, Sam Teets.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense considering what they were doing to those tackles the other day. The one call that really just annoyed me was the one where that overturned the Tyrann Mathieu interception. I think that's when Tyrann Mathieu started to lose his composure a little bit. Was after that one. I think that's when you can notice that Tyrann Mathieu gets a little bit jumpier after that. But Tyrann Mathieu always been a dog like that to go after guys. But I didn't love that one. But at the same time, I couldn't really complain about it. I mean, you look at it, the guy's holding to do it at the top of his route when he turns around. So,
well, how he had his arms around him. He had his arms around him.
You're going to get calls like that. If you don't want to get calls like that, don't be grabbing on the receivers like that.
Yeah, and you can't hug people, especially if you don't have a mask on, right, Steve Rizzer?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And is there anything dumber than 25,000 cardboard cutouts looking like fans?
Yeah, I wasn't a big fan of that at all. No, I did not like that at all. No.
That is absolutely stupid. And I didn't see anybody wearing a mask by the middle of the first quarter either. I just wanted to bring that up, too.
No, what was it? For baseball, it was like, what, $25 you can have a cardboard cutout? It was $100 for those cardboard cutouts the other day, Mike.
It's absolutely stupid. And I'm sure they give the money to charity. And by charity, I mean, they stick most of the money in Roger Goodell's pocket. But that's about it. When we look at this, both of these teams, I think it's safe to say right now, I think Tampa Bay is the team that is more likely to be back in this game next year than what the Kansas City Chiefs are. Just because the Chiefs are over the salary cap, they're going to have to lose a couple guys, maybe on that defense. And that defense is not that great to begin with, Steve Rizzer.
No, I totally agree with you there. Yeah, they might have to lose. They might have to lose a couple guys, and they really don't have a running game. Their offensive line is even with Eric Fisher is shaky, but they will get Fisher and Schwartz back, so that would improve it there. But yeah, they're going to have to cut some guys. And you look at if you look at Tampa Bay, look at their schedule going into next year. They play the NFC East, they play the AFC East too. So I think they've got an easier schedule. I think Tampa Bay could very easily win it again. Look at the team that they have. And for Kansas City, it's just always hard to get to lose the Super Bowl and then get back to the Super Bowl. There's only been one team in the last 25 years that's done that, and that obviously was the Patriots in 2018. So it's very hard to do that. It's much easier to win the Super Bowl and go back the next year than to lose the Super Bowl and go back the next year. So I do think Tampa Bay is more likely to get to the Super Bowl next year than Kansas City.
How about this though? When you say they don't have a running game, they do. They just won't use it, and that's why in the past Andy Reid sucks as a coach. I'm sorry, he just does. I mean, Clyde Edwards-Helaire was their best player yesterday, and it seemed like every time they gave him the ball, he ran for 15 yards. Sam Teets, and then
he averaged 7.1 yards per carry, but only had 9 carries. I got going in the second half. I think early in the second half, they were running the ball fairly well, but you never saw that through the rest of the game. And frankly, if you started doing that earlier in the game, maybe you would have had more success because the guys you have up front, if you're Kansas City, are closer to maulers than they are legitimate pass protectors. So why not just try to run the ball against Tampa Bay and maybe drag some of their defensive backs and linebackers up close to the line and hopefully open up something
I think
over
a
top.
big reason, though, they didn't is because Tampa Bay's run defense is so good. They got one of the best front sevens in football. They're number one in the league against the run. Tampa Bay, the weakness of Tampa Bay's defense was by far their secondary. That's probably why they didn't want to run the ball. But you make a good point there with the offensive line Kansas City had. They might have been better served to run the football.
Put it like this. I think the way they were defended by Tampa Bay didn't blitz them. I think it was less than 10%. I think they did what I thought they would do. They played a lot of man press. They put a lot of guys in coverage. You can run the ball against that. I mean, basically, if they're not blitzing you, you can double team some guys too up on the line. And that's what they did. And is Steve Ridley here? His dog's always barking too. That must be Steve Rizzer because it's almost like Ridley.
Yeah.
But I just think this. I think Andy Reid has a history of not wanting to run the football. He's got, a really good running back in Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who I think if he was somewhere else where they let him touch the ball 20 times a game and he was healthy, I think he'd probably been the rookie of the year. I think he's that good. And to not use the guy, especially when Patrick Mahomes' his toes messed up. Of course, Tony Romo, who's going to marry Patrick Mahomes someday, I think, didn't even bring this up until we get to the third quarter when Mahomes is getting drubbed and starts limping around. But when I look at this, the biggest thing I take away from yesterday is Tony Romo actually just getting giddy with excitement whenever Patrick Mahomes throws a pass. He can throw a pass and it can be incomplete. And Romo will go, well, that's the perfect place to throw a pass if you're not going to complete it. I'm like, geez, you got to be kidding me.
There were some plays the other day that the Chiefs just got, I don't want to say unlucky, but the receivers didn't help out Patrick Mahomes. There's a play in the first quarter where the ball bounces off Tyreek Hill's face mask. And
was that
there's
the one towards the end zone?
Yeah, in the end zone.
Yeah,
I will give this, though. The ones that hit off the guys' faces usually had a linebacker in front and a couple guys beside and some hands there. So
there's a little bit there's a little bit in their way, but at the same point, if you're Tyreek Hill, you're an all-pro wide receiver, you should probably be making that catch. And there's the one with Travis Kelce. It's after Kansas City stopped Tampa Bay on the 1-yard line. They're driving out, and they end up going 3 and out, and there's a shank punt that goes 27 yards after that. But Travis Kelce dropped a first down catch right before that. So there were a lot of instances there where the Chiefs, like you said, self-destructed, shot themselves in the foot, all those kind of things.
Yep. That's from panicking, isn't it? I mean, basically, we saw them play differently. And I hate to say this because we've seen them come back before, but they played like a team that was a team of front runners yesterday.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I completely agree. Yeah. Once they got behind, it just didn't seem like they had that fight to get back in the game. And they got frustrated. They got flustered after that third touchdown. Absolutely. I agree 100% there.
And if we're going to talk about minority coaches getting head coaching jobs, why not Byron Leftwich, Sam McGinnis?
What?
Byron Leftwich. He's the offensive coordinator for Tampa Bay. And I would tell you this, I would much rather have Byron Leftwich as the head coach of my team than I would Eric Bieniemy. It has nothing to do with yesterday.
What does it have to do with then? I'm curious.
Byron Leftwich is a better person. He's a better coach.
Byron
I can
Leftwich
deal
was
with
a
better person.
well. Byron Leftwich was a former quarterback in the NFL. He was on the Steelers for a little while. You think he was in Jacksonville as well.
He was a great quarterback in Jacksonville. He got him.
Yeah, he was great in Jacksonville. I was a really good back for Pittsburgh. I enjoyed having him around because I knew when Ben got down, we still had a good quarterback behind us. But no, he worked really well with Tom Brady. And him and Todd Bowles, I mean, look at the staff they have with Bruce Arians right now. It's a pretty good staff. They got some good people there to really help out. And like I said, if the coaching positions had still been open this summer, Leftwich, Todd Bowles, those guys should have been getting more calls.
Yeah. So what do you think of the halftime show, Teets?
You know, I admit I watched about 75% of it, and I went upstairs and brushed my teeth because I just didn't really care that much. It's not like I like The Weeknd that real. It's not like I'm not a fan of his music. I remember him back from when I was in high school. That's really where I know him from.
He doesn't even spell The Weeknd right.
Yeah, the gimmick was just the ND at the end, but I didn't. The one part where they're in the mirror maze or whatever, and it's just him bobbing and weaving around. I was getting like motion sick from that. I was like, I don't like that too much. But
did anybody like it?
I just gave up on watching the Super Bowl halftime a long time ago. It hasn't been good for a long time. I just stopped bothering.
I'll say this: like a bunch of my friends who go to concerts regularly and spend a lot of kind of money, they liked it for whatever reason. But it's not my personal thing. But a bunch of my friends who go to concerts really liked it.
You know what my dad would say to me if I said that, Sam? Get better friends. Steve Rizzer, did you love the halftime show?
It was all right. It was all right.
It sucked. It sucked. It was horrible.
He's like,
I mean, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who would have sang. The audio mix was so bad you couldn't even really hear the lyrics, anyways.
That is true. I had trouble. I knew what song he was singing because I've heard them before all the time, but I had trouble deciphering exactly what he was saying. The point, and he wasn't lip syncing. I give him credit for that at the very least, but I really couldn't hear.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it would have been more entertaining if you had Miley Cyrus and Billy Idol. You didn't see that on the pregame show?
I didn't watch all the pregame show. I only watched for like.
Too.
It was good.
It was horrific. It was bad.
Oh my goodness! There was switching of the national anthem. It reminded me of who was that person that did that horrible basketball national anthem? Tried to make it.
I know who you're talking about. I can't remember.
Yeah,
I know you're talking about. I can't remember either. But
dude,
I don't know her name.
It was that-esque. It felt like that. It was that bad.
Yeah, the national anthem was horrible. It sounded like a cluster. It was horrible. So at least we had racial diversity on a bad halftime show or a bad pregame or bad national anthem. You had the white person and the black person screwed it up. So,
wait, I don't know why you get a country singer to sing the national anthem. That doesn't seem like it would fit.
Why? What's wrong with country singers?
Well, I'm from New Jersey to start off here. Country is not a thing here necessarily.
You're from Jersey. You'd only be happy if it was Bruce Springsteen.
You know, Bruce Springsteen probably would do a good job with that. You know,
it wouldn't take much to do better than that.
No, it wouldn't.
I missed Justin Timberlake and Coldplay when I watched that yesterday.
I never understood why people thought they needed to put a stylistic twist on the national anthem. Like, it sounds good the way it is. You don't need to try and change it. It usually sounds worse when you do.
I don't know. Sam's our musician anyways. Right, Sam?
Me? This Sam?
Oh,
Me?
Sam McGinnis.
Okay, no. I have no idea what you're talking about.
My brother's the musician.
Your mom could sing, so I figured you could. My bad.
Oh, yeah. I can't.
Sing something for us, McGinnis.
No.
Hey,
My mom's opera professionally trained. I'm not.
I made Risley sing one time.
Oh, you know what? I think was I on for that one or not?
I think so that was John Einreinhofer. We did the NCAA March Madness show the year Villanova won it all and beat Michigan, and he talked all year how Michigan was going to win it all, and I told him I think Villanova will win it all, and he had to sing One Shining Moment because the bet was if Villanova won and I was right, he had to sing One Shining Moment. Now, the bad thing about it for Steve is he never even got into the bet where I would have to sing if Michigan won. So it was a win-win for me.
Was it? You had to listen to that. I don't know if that's necessarily a win.
Also,
it was a win.
Villanova for getting Michigan out. That is appreciated.
Well, You're a Michigan State fan. It's not like you guys are ever in anymore. Hell, you guys are like 13th in the Big Ten.
We're not even good at basketball anymore. We suck at everything.
Yeah, all your teams suck at everything, don't they, Sam?
Yeah, kind of.
See, I still got Xavier basketball and Cincinnati Bearcat football. No professional teams are worth a damn.
No.
And next year, I'm pretty sure the Super Bowl is going to be the Bengals and the Giants anyway.
At least it'd be something new. I'd be okay with something new. Except
I think me and Rizzer would be fine with the Bengals and the Giants.
I'd love the Bengals and Giants Super Bowl.
Yeah, because we'd win because we got Joe Burrow and you don't have a quarterback.
Oh, hey.
That's a good point, though. You got to admit it. That's a good point.
That's a good point. I'll give you that. But I still think
he'll still be hurt probably.
Yeah.
All right, Carson Wentz to the Colts. Anybody like that idea?
I think Bears.
I think Bears too.
Bears.
Yeah, I've heard Bears and Colts.
Yeah. Well, if you're Carson Wentz, where would you rather go?
Oh, Colts easily.
The team with the dome. The Dome Stadium with Frank Reid as the head coach.
Colts.
An O-line. Of course you're going to pick the Colts.
All right. So I'm about done. Anybody else got anything? That game
we talked about Tampa Bay reloading for next year.
I will say this real quick, though. I did give you Leonard Fournette before the game, and he did play pretty well. I mean,
you did. They ran the ball really well. They ran the ball really well for Tampa Bay.
And see, I think that's what people miss. I think this Chiefs team is so overrated just because I don't think their defense against the run is not very good at all. The problem is teams, even when they jump out to a 14-0 lead on the Chiefs, continue to try to throw the ball because they think they've got to score 45 points. Where I think the Buccaneers could have came out, predominantly ran the ball the whole damn game, and probably won just as dominant, if not more dominant.
Absolutely. Yeah, you've seen the Chiefs' weakness. So 2 years ago when they played the Patriots in the AFC Championship game, the Patriots ran the ball down their throats. If a team can run the ball against the Chiefs have a lot of problems.
When Chris Jones, their defensive tackle, is not like a run-stopping defensive tackle. This is the guy who's looking in the backfield to get sacks. He can play the runner if he wants to, but he's not going to be like DeForest Buckner or Fletcher Cox or Aaron Allen. He's not that type of player.
So is there any way the Chiefs can fix this defense with the salary cap issues without destroying everything else?
Probably not. I'm looking at the numbers right now, and they are $17 million in the red. So it will take major restructuring to fix this up. You could maybe try and move on for someone like Frank Clark, a defensive end who really is more of a pass rusher than a run defender, and try to spread that money somewhere else. But outside of a fantastic draft, I don't see you fixing this in one offseason.
Well, and the offensive line, I know they had a few guys injured yesterday, but the offensive line has some issues too. They got a guy there they may lose in free agency. And from what we saw, it doesn't matter how many weapons you have, if you can't block the other team's defense. Now, granted, most teams don't have a pass rush like that, and you may go 14-2 every year and make a deep run in the playoffs. But winning a Super Bowl is a totally different thing. And last year, let's face it, they won the Super Bowl, Steve Rizzer, because their defense the last half of the season played outstanding.
Absolutely. And their defense made the big stops in the fourth quarter against the 49ers. They played really well in the second half against the Titans. And then that was that was the reason why they won. Even though Mahomes was outstanding in the fourth quarter of that Super Bowl against the Niners, their defense was definitely a big reason why they won it.
All right. So with the Chiefs, do we all just agree then the Bengals probably will win the AFC next year?
Okay. Start by winning the division first.
Well,
then you can start talking about winning
making the playoffs.
Making the playoffs. Hey, you know what? The Cincinnati Bengals have been in the playoffs 5 times in the last 9 years. How many times have the Lions been? How many times have the Lions been there in the last 9 years? Twice?
I think twice.
Hey, Sam, have you ever watched your team play in a Super Bowl?
Not that old. And
Sam, have you ever watched your team play in an AFC Championship game? Sam, have you ever seen the Detroit Lions play in the AFC divisional playoffs or the NFC divisional playoffs? No. So, Sam, be quiet. All right. Everybody else on this show has seen their team in multiple Super Bowls.
That's because everybody else was fortunate enough to be born somewhere other than Detroit.
You moved, Sam. You could have switched your allegiance.
I don't really think that's fair.
And Teese lives in Jersey. Cheers for the Steelers.
Listen, Jersey can pick wherever we want. We're right in the middle of everything.
See, at least me and Rizzer cheer for the teams that we're close to.
I was about to say, like, aren't you closer to like Philadelphia? No, like, you're in New Jersey. Both, you realize the stadium for the Giants and the Jets are both in New Jersey, right? Because it's the same stadium. What do you mean you don't have an allegiance?
McGinnis just realized that too, by the way.
Yeah, he
No,
just
I've known
figured
it
it
for a
out.
while. I don't understand why.
Look, we
All
got
right.
a lot of teams that are considered like local teams just because they're all within 2 or 3 hours of us.
All right, so when we look into this offseason, who's a team that didn't make the playoffs this year, not counting the Miami Dolphins, who are just a good offseason away from being a contender to go to a Super Bowl? McGinnis, we'll start with you because you had the dumbest answer.
I think maybe the Raiders.
Really?
Yeah,
Explain yourself.
Yeah, explain this.
So I think if they pick up some pieces on defense, they'll be fine, because I liked what I saw from Derek Carr. Like, I've been high on Derek Carr for a little while now, and I think they even proved they can put up big points against teams, including they did against the Saints as well. So I think they've got the offense to do it. They just need to pick it up in a couple of places.
I'll say this with 2 words: John Gruden.
Yeah, that's fair.
All right, Steve
You gave me
Risner.
like 2 seconds to look, so that was the first team that came to mind.
I got the Chargers. I think, Justin Herbert proved this year you could be a franchise quarterback. I think they got some pretty good weapons around him with Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. I think this defense, if they could stay healthy, could be really good with Joey Bosa, Derwin James, Chris Harris, Melvin Ingram. I think, and they got a new coach, Brendan Staley. I think it's going to improve that defense. I got the Chargers.
Okay, I don't think they're ever going to do anything with Justin Herbert, but he's a front runner. He was in college. He will be in the NFL. Sam Teets.
You all missed the obvious one, the San Francisco 49ers. It's that simple. It really is. I mean, they had so many injuries this past year. I know they lost their defensive coordinator. They're going to have a quarterback, whether it's Deshaun Watson or Jimmy Garoppolo or Zach Wilson, whoever it's going to be. They're going to have a quarterback next year that's going to be better than Nick Mullins or C.J. Beathard. And they're going to be much healthier. That offensive line was pretty good this past season. They're developing wide receivers. They're going to get George Kittle back. It's the San Francisco 49ers.
Okay, I'm good with that. That's the best answer.
I knew it was. I was waiting for it. I was hoping no one would pick it. I'm glad it got down to me.
Well, I'm going to say the Detroit Lions.
I realize we have freaking Jared Goff as our quarterback.
I would say this. Freaking Jared Goff is better than 90% of the quarterbacks the Detroit Lions have ever had in their entire existence.
I think, outside of like quarterbacks from 50s or earlier and Matthew Stafford, he's the best quarterback we've had.
Greg Landry was good. You don't even know who that is, do you, Sam?
No.
Jeez. Don't you have books you could read about the Detroit Lions or anything if you're going to be a Lions fan? What about Eric?
Let me get this straight. What
about Eric Hipple?
Read about all the pain before me, too.
What about Eric Hipple? You don't remember Eric Hipple?
Dude, you realize how young I am, right?
It doesn't matter. I know about everything that happened before I was born. It's important to know the history so you're not doomed to repeat it. So you don't know the history. It's maybe entirely your fault the Lions continue to suck.
Right.
Because you don't know the history of the team.
I know it's so much my fault. That's why they had math. Yeah, 100%.
Exactly. I'm going to say the Cincinnati Bengals. They'll make
That's
the
good.
playoffs.
I figured you'd
next
take
year.
that.
It's Joe Burrow. It's easy. The division, I don't think is going to be very good. I mean, to me, the Ravens don't have a quarterback. The Steelers don't have a quarterback, and they're Cleveland. They made the playoffs. They'll get there again in another 20 years.
Yeah, it's interesting because like I've seen this now with Ben Roethlisberger.
Sam took my actual answer, by the way, with the 49ers. Go ahead.
Yeah,
McGinnis.
I figured.
Oh, now I lost my train of thought. Oh, yeah, with Ben Roethlisberger and Drew Brees now, we've seen what happens when you have a quarterback that can't throw the ball far down the field. They need to move on from Big Ben.
Oh, obviously, yes. I
like when
completely agree.
Mason Rudolph is a better option, there's a serious problem.
He is not a better option.
No, I wouldn't go that far.
No.
Right, because the guy that threw 4 picks in a playoff game.
Dude.
He also threw like 3 touchdowns.
It's Mason.
He threw 4 touchdowns, actually.
Yeah.
Okay, it's Mason Rudolph. Mason Rudolph would not have thrown 4 touchdowns, but Mason Rudolph would have thrown 5 interceptions.
Yeah. I mean, there's no financial way Ben's not going to be there next year if he wants to be there. There's just no way where he can work.
I don't know. Bench. You need to figure out something. If you got to bench him, I don't know what you're going to do, but you need to move on.
Dwayne Haskins, that's the answer. That's
That
going to
is
fix
still
everything.
not the answer.
I forgot about that. So you are set at quarterback for next year.
This can be awful.
And the question is Dwayne Haskins worse than Daniel Jones?
No way.
So Dwayne Haskins is not worse than Daniel Jones.
No, he is worse than Daniel Jones. He is.
Oh, is he really? Is there a difference?
Yes.
Yeah. I think Daniel Jones. I mean, he's shown some flashes of being good. Yeah, he struggled at the beginning of the year, but I think by the second half of the year, the turnover stopped. The Giants started to use him on the zone read on the read option. Once you get him, if the O line improves, they get him another receiver. I feel like he could have success. Next year is obviously a big year, though.
Here, I got breaking news. This is one for you. This is the reason, or one of the big reasons, why the NFL doesn't have diversity in coaching. The Minnesota Vikings, Gary Kubiak, announced his retirement. The team is replacing the veteran play caller with his son, Clint Kubiak. Number one, his name's Clint with a K, so he's going to fail anyways because it's a stupid name. He's 33 years old. I think he did go into same, In-N-Out Burger in L.A. that Sean McVay has frequented. So I think that's how he got the job. But, I mean, come on. We just saw this with, what's the walrus? Andy Reid's son. I mean, these guys, like over a third of these NFL head coaches have their sons as assistant coaches.
Yeah, Belichick has his son, yeah.
Yeah. Is that an issue, Steve Rizzer?
I trust that Belichick knows, even if it's his son. I think he knows what he's doing.
Belichick also has Josh McDaniels, who's a moron. He had Matt Patricia, who's a moron. I mean, Bill Belichick, everybody does what Bill Belichick says.
Yeah,
I think it's a huge issue here that the NFL is full of coaches that are there because of nepotism. Sean McVay, his dad was, the GM of the Giants. Wasn't he back in the late 70s?
Yeah.
I mean, all these guys have a connection. And I think the biggest issue here is not diversity, but it's the fact that they don't hire the best coaches. And Sam Teets, we talk about this all the time. This is just another perfect example of it.
Well, yeah, you talk about getting your foot in the door. Some of these coaches don't get a chance to get their foot in the door, especially not early in their careers because they don't have those connections. If you're the first football coach in your family, I mean, what are you going to do? You're facing uphill battle versus guys who have their sons, cousins, whatever, or their friends, cousins, or sons, whatever, making the team, and they're coaching in different roles. It's an uphill battle for some of these guys who are more qualified to be in these positions.
Well, and how about this? With what happened with Andy Reid's son, if that would have been Bill Belichick's son, we would have never heard the end of it during the pregame show, the game, and the postgame show, Sam.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, and I think going back to the point of the problem isn't diversity. I think people kind of pendulum swing into one of two categories. Either it's fine how it is, or you need to start hiring more diverse members. To your point, I think this goes to jobs in general. You should hire the person that's best for the job. If that so happens to be a Black or Hispanic person, then so be it. Or if it happens to be a white person, so be it. It just should be whoever is best. And if it so happens to be whoever, then that's your best option. There shouldn't be favoritism in either sense here.
Yeah, and Sam Teets, I am right about this if it was Belichick's son. And it seemed like it was
if there's anything involved around Tom Brady or the Patriots or anything like that, we've seen in the past too with a bunch of like smaller – they get labeled scandals, not really scandals, but we've seen like media blow stuff up around New England. It always happens around successful individuals and teams usually, especially ones that are considered the best in their individual sports. But, just got to hope that I think it's a 5-year-old girl is still in critical condition right now after that. So we'll see. I mean, Reid's kid is going to get charged. He's I don't know how old he's not kid anymore. He's 36 years old.
He went to jail for 2 years for pulling a gun on somebody in a road rage accident in 2007.
Yeah, well, he's probably going back to jail after this one because if he found out that he was drunk or on whatever prescription when he hit this car that was supposedly sitting still, it's going to be.
He did admit it to having drinks. And I think that would be at the Chiefs practice facility because that's where he left from. So I just think that if it was a different coach other than the big fat guy that everybody loves because he seems so cuddly, I think this would have been blown up in a much bigger story at ESPN than what it ended up being.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, it's like me. I like when anybody takes a cheap shot at Tyreek Hill because I think he deserves it. Didn't bother me at all. At 31-9, when the dude gets up and gets in his face, I thought that was hilarious. If I'm coaching a guy, I ain't gonna be mad. Hell, we're up 31-9. This is
the Bucs coaches weren't mad either. They were like jumping on.
Oh, yeah, everybody loved it because everybody knows Tyreek Hill's a scumbag. And the great angel Andy Reid has a tendency to bring in guys that maybe have a little low character.
They did get rid of Kareem Hunt almost immediately after the video came out, though. They did get rid of him.
The video came out. They didn't get rid of him until after the video came out, though.
That's true, but you can go back to Ray Rice and all that stuff anyways.
Yeah,
where like
it came out
the video.
The video went out.
It takes the video. This is how the NFL's always been.
When the dude's wife shows up with bruises upside her head, it doesn't take much of an imagination there. Especially when you look at the history of these guys. Tyreek Hill, it's not the only time he's ever been in trouble. Go ahead, McGinnis.
I will say I'm not really sure you can say the Bucs are really any better in that matter, thinking Ndamukong Suh and Antonio Brown, but I think this is just like Teets was saying an NFL.
Wait a second. What did Ndamukong Suh do?
I think Suh's not done anything off the field that I know of.
Suh plays football.
I'm not talking off the field. I'm talking on the field. What
did he do?
At least while he was on the lines, he would stomp on people. He intentionally
Sam, I know it's an idyllic world for a lot of people. You play football to college level, you're going to get kicked. And, sometimes you do.
I mean, well after the play was over.
Oh, yeah. I can tell you on the bottom of a pile, if you play Division I college football, all kind of really bad things happen, Sam. I mean, and you know what? Ndamukong Suh, guys like that are guys you want on your team because the other team's got guys like that too. And if you don't have anybody like that to protect your guys, and the thing is this, there's a big difference between stomping on a dude. I don't care. He stomped on a grown man who was 6'5", 300 pounds in the middle of the field. He didn't punch a pregnant girl in the stomach who was 18.
No. I don't think it's of that level, but I'm not saying I don't really think you can speak highly of some of the players on the Bucs either outside.
Like who else? Who else?
Antonio Brown.
I know Antonio Brown. He was a Steeler. It's obvious he's a scumbag.
Okay.
But outside of former Steelers, who else?
Outside of Ndamukong Suh wasn't a former Steeler, was it? I don't think he was ever.
No, he's talking outside of Antonio Brown.
And Ndamukong Suh doesn't do anything except play really rough. In 1976, Ndamukong Suh is just considered a great player.
He's right about that.
I'm not. That might be right for the time. I'm just not sure that should be.
Well, this is the thing. We live in a time where everything is stupid, Sam. I've explained this to you guys.
That's always been the case. The world
generational gap here,
yeah. In the 1970s and 80s is the way life was supposed to be.
All right, we've gotten off track. Can we get what are we talking about? What are we talking about now? What's
and when I look at Periscope and the other places, we have even more listeners now than we did then. I don't know. I didn't have anything else. That's why I just figured I'd talk shit about Tyreek Hill because I really don't like him. I wish they still had Kareem Hunt so they both could have got beat down together.
He's in Cleveland, though. That's enough of a punishment.
And the other thing is this. Couldn't you kind of see this coming with the Chiefs? I think the Bucs maybe should have been a slight favorite just because of the fact that Kansas City played really well against Buffalo, but Kansas City could have easily lost to Cleveland, even if Mahomes wouldn't have gotten hurt. That was a game where if they don't get that 4th and 1, I think there's a good chance the Browns go down on that defense, score a touchdown, and win the game. So the scary thing is they could have been the Browns in the Super Bowl.
I think people were also overrating Andy Reid with the bye week and how he would offensively game plan for Tampa Bay. Because, I mean, look at it. It looked like a varsity versus a JV squad almost for the first half of the game.
Yeah, and I did.
So you looked at
I'm not saying Andy Reid's not a good football coach, but to put Andy Reid in the same breath as a Belichick or a Harbaugh, to me, is just stupid.
It didn't go well last night. And there weren't like the adjustments, like running the football. There weren't the adjustments that you needed to be. Even come out in the second half, they didn't have adjustments that were going to put them in position to win that football game.
So, Steve Rizzer, does this affect Eric Bieniemy next year trying to get a job?
We'll see. We'll see. I mean, I think next year, because he's been passed over so many times, it's probably going to be the year he's probably going to get a coaching job. Because obviously there are always, at least 5 to 7, vacancies every year, and he's been passed over so many times. So I feel like next year will be the year he'll get a coaching job.
Maybe it was passed over because of stuff like last night too, and the fact that when you see teams talk about after interviewing him, nobody's impressed when they interview him.
Yeah, you got a point there. I'll give you that.
So, all right, McGinnis, you agree Eric Bieniemy will be a colossal failure when he becomes an NFL head coach? Just agree with me so you'll be right once. I'm giving you a softball.
I'm not sure I'd say colossal failure, but I don't know. I don't think he'll be outstanding.
All right, good enough. Sam Teets, anything else we want to talk about before we wrap it up?
Nope, I think we've covered just about everything we want to.
Sam McGinnis, what do you think of the Puppy Bowl?
What?
I know you. I know you watched the Puppy Bowl, McGinnis.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
You don't know what the Puppy Bowl is?
I've heard
Pete
the
knows
name,
the
but I don't
Puppy
know what it
Bowl.
is.
Rizzer's from New Jersey. He knows what the Puppy Bowl is, don't you, Rizzer?
A little bit. I've heard of it.
Yeah, I heard Team Ruff won like 64-61. It sounded like a much better game than the actual Super Bowl was. All right, Steve Rizzer, tell us where we can find you. I know you got a show on Wednesday.
Yes, Wednesday afternoon, clovercrestmedia.com. I'll actually be live on Facebook. We'll be live recapping the Super Bowl 1 o'clock. But clovercrestmedia.com. And my Twitter is Steve at Steve1290. And for the show's Twitter, at Sports Talk with 9.
All right, Sam McGinnis.
At Samuel McG22 on Twitter, Instagram, and if you want to find shows, you can find me and Sam Teets every Friday night at 9:30, or you can find me still looking for a regular time for the NHL show. But we actually have another person now that's willing to do it, so we've got an NHL show back.
Who'd you trick into that?
Jack Woods.
All right.
He does other NHL stuff for another puck site, so
Watch your language, McGinnis. Teets.
that's PUCK.
Yeah, Sam_Teets33 on Twitter for more content, articles, and polls. So feel free to go check all that stuff out.
All right. Remember, check out all of our stuff at gruelingtruth.com. Last week, we had special guest Chuck Foreman on, I believe it was Wednesday. We had Rocky Blair on Monday. Both great guys. Check out those shows right there. PathofPurity.direct. 2-for-1 price on CBD, $75. 2 bottles takes care of you 2 months. You put it under your tongue. You know, you don't have to do the dropper that tastes like crap. You just stick it under your tongue, goes immediately into your bloodstream, and stays there for 12 hours, time releasing. So for now, you can follow me at Grueling Truth. Make sure you go follow us on Facebook now. We're up like 113,000 followers, Sam Teets.
Yeah, we're really starting to kick up, and we just got over 100,000 the other time, so we're moving up.
Yeah, I think we picked up like 13,000 in the last week. I think it's because of McGinnis's NHL show.
That would make me happy, but I sorely doubt that.
Hey, you got over 1,000 listens to the NHL show.
It was a good show. I liked having Woods on, and hopefully we'll be able to cover the rest of the league next time we come on, because we only covered half of it.
And I can't be on the Sam and Sam show because you guys do it at 9:30. I go to bed by then because I'm old, folks. But all right, make sure you check out Steve Rizzer on Wednesday. Clovercrest Media Media. All right, so make sure you check him out. You're on Facebook too.
Yeah, Facebook. Yep.
Me and Sam will be back tomorrow. That's Teets. I don't know about McGinnis yet. We don't know what the topic is. You want to do your mock draft tomorrow?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up for Steve Rizzer, Sam McGinnis, Sam Teets. I'm Mike Goodpaster. I almost said I'm Sam Goodpaster or Steve Goodpaster. So you've been listening to The Grueling Truth. We're